He had a plane waiting, a guaranteed escape route. But he chose a rifle, a gift from Fidel Castro to the man who spent his entire life saying that weapons were unnecessary. This man is Salvador Allende, democratically elected president of Chile, a doctor, the most stubborn Democrat in South America, the man who won power through the ballot box and refused any other path. And today, September 11th, 1973, he is inside a burning palace, exchanging fire with the very army he commanded. Most stories will tell you this is a political tragedy. It isn't. It's a personal tragedy, about a man who believed in an idea so deeply and for so long that when the idea died, he didn't know what to do with what was left. To understand how a president ends up here, you need to go back to a man who refused to give up 3 times in a row. Allende loses the presidential election. Allende loses again by 33,000 votes. 33,000 in a country of 8 million people. Allende loses once more. Most men would have stopped, found something else, another position, another cause, another life. Allende didn't stop. And here's the question no one asks. Why? 3 defeats over 12 years don't speak only of principles. They speak of something deeper, a need to prove something, to the world, to the movement, to himself. Allende was a doctor. He co-founded Chile's Socialist Party. He knew Marx and he knew the human body and saw little difference between the two. Both were systems that broke down when exploited. He wanted to heal. That was his deepest identity. But the cure he had in mind required one specific instrument: the presidency. Not guerrilla warfare, not armed revolution. While Castro seized Cuba by force and Che died in the Bolivian jungle trying to set a continent on fire, Allende kept saying, there is another way. The Chilean path to socialism. Change within the law, within the Constitution, within the rules that civilization invented to prevent chaos. It was a beautiful bet. It was also a bet that depended entirely on the other side playing by the same rules. In 1970, on his 4th attempt, Allende won by 1.3% of the vote. But what Allende didn't know was that the man who would destroy him was already writing down his name, and he wasn't in Chile. When Allende won in September 1970, Nixon summoned his CIA director. The meeting lasted 15 minutes. That was all it took to decide the fate of an entire country. The notes from that meeting survived. The order was clear: destroy this government. $10 million, the best men available, top priority. The initial mission? Prevent Allende from taking office. Block the process in Congress. Stoke chaos. Anything. It didn't work. Allende was inaugurated in November. And then, in July 1971, he did the thing that turned American concern into fury. He nationalized the copper. Chile had the world's largest copper reserves, and for decades, that copper had been extracted by 2 American corporations, Anaconda and Kennecott, which took the profits out of the country while Chilean miners lived in miserable conditions. For Allende, nationalization wasn't ideology. It was medicine. It was returning to the body what had been taken from it. For Nixon, it was a punch on the table. It was at that moment, not the election, but the nationalization, that the American strategy shifted in tone. Make the economy scream. Nixon didn't just want to remove Allende from power. He wanted the Chilean people to beg for it. And the plan started with something as simple as milk. One of the first things Allende did upon taking office was guarantee half a liter of milk per day for every Chilean child. That was who he was. The doctor who saw child malnutrition as the most urgent symptom of a broken system. That half liter was living proof that his project worked. Mothers knew it. Children knew it. Washington knew it too. From 1971 onward, 2 clocks were running at the same time in Chile. On Allende's clock, wages rising, healthcare programs expanding, milk in schools. He believed time was on his side. On Washington's clock, $8 million flowing through Chile. International credit blocked, spare parts cut off, for the trucks, for the mines, for the state-owned buses. Opposition newspapers funded, strikes fomented. An invisible architecture of destruction being built brick by brick. Inflation spiked, shelves emptied, and the milk, the daily half-liter Allende had promised every Chilean child, began to disappear. December 1971. Women took to the streets, not with political banners, with pots and pans. Empty cookware clanging against each other, a sound that carried across entire city blocks. That was the exact sound of his failure. The doctor who had promised to feed Chile was being accused of emptying its family's pots. He knew the Americans were behind it. He said so publicly. But knowing who is poisoning you doesn't stop the poison. By 1972, inflation had reached 200%. By 1973, 600%. In the middle of all this, one man was holding the last thread. General Carlos Prats, Commander-in-Chief of the Army, a committed constitutionalist, the kind of military man who believes a uniform is not a political mandate. As long as Prats was in his post, a coup was difficult. So the coup plotters went after Prats, not with bullets, with humiliation. The wives of senior army generals organized a protest outside Prats's home. In the street, in public. They called him a coward, said he was Allende's puppet. Slow-acting poison. It was impossible for a commander-in-chief to maintain authority over officers whose families considered him a joke. August 23, 1973, Prats resigned. And it was at that point that Allende made the most important choice of his entire life. Not a policy, a name. He chose General Augusto Pinochet to replace Prats. History usually tells this as a catastrophic failure of judgment. Allende deceived, Pinochet dissembling, fatal naivety. But the reality is more disturbing than that. Pinochet was not an obvious conspirator. While other generals had openly chosen sides, Pinochet stayed on the fence until the final days, confirming loyalty to Allende, serving with discretion. There are accounts that he reassured Allende of his faithfulness just days before the coup. It wasn't naivety to choose Pinochet. It was bad luck, and perhaps something worse. Allende didn't choose an enemy. He chose a protector who would betray him at the last second. Before we continue, do you think Allende knew at that moment that he was appointing the man who would end everything? Leave it in the comments. There is a name Allende brought up repeatedly in his final months. Not Marx, not Castro, not any revolutionary hero. José Manuel Balmaceda, president of Chile in the 19th century, lost a civil war against Congress in 1891, took refuge in an embassy, and on the last day of his constitutional term, not before, not after, on the last day, he wrote his letters and shot himself. Allende talked about Balmaceda the way someone studies a map for a journey already booked. And while he studied that map, the doors were closing, one by one. June 1973, a tank regiment surrounded La Moneda. It wasn't a drill. It was a coup attempt, the tanquetazo. Dissident officers, tanks in the streets, gunfire near the presidential palace. It failed. General Prats personally went to the scene, confronted the mutinous soldiers, and crushed the rebellion. Allende survived, but the tanquetazo wasn't a coup. It was a rehearsal. And everyone, including Allende, knew that. The first door closed. The illusion that the army was united no longer existed. The strikes didn't stop. The truckers had paralyzed the country in October 1972, with American funding, with the declared goal of making Chile ungovernable. In 1973, the strikes returned. Longer, more coordinated, more widespread. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, truckers again. The second door closed. The illusion that time was on his side no longer existed. August 22, 1973. The Chilean Congress voted a resolution declaring that Allende's government had violated the Constitution. Read that again. The democratically elected parliament formally declared that the democratically elected president was governing illegally. It wasn't impeachment. It was something more sinister. No direct legal consequence, but a clear message to those who wanted to hear it. The institutions no longer protect him. It was a green light disguised as paperwork. The third door closed. One day later, Prats resigned. And then came Pinochet. And while Allende was appointing his new commander-in-chief, all three branches of the armed forces were already coordinating. Meetings, planning, the date being chosen. The fourth door closed. All of them closed slowly enough for him to watch each one. And Allende was left in a corridor with no way out, staring at Balmaceda's reflection, and choosing not to move. Not because he didn't see what was happening, but because he had decided that there was only one way to make any of it mean something. On September 11th, 1973, nothing that happened came as a surprise to him. The only thing left was to decide how the story would end. 6 a.m. The news arrives. The Navy has mutinied in Valparaiso. Allende gets dressed, picks up the AK-47, and drives to La Moneda. The coup plotters send a message. A plane is waiting. He and his family can go, their lives guaranteed. Allende's reply carries an unsettling calm. A Chilean president does not flee on a plane. At 9:10 a.m., he makes his final broadcast. His voice doesn't waver. He isn't pleading, he isn't threatening, he isn't negotiating. He is speaking to the future, not the present. Workers of my country, I have faith in Chile and its destiny. Other men will overcome this dark and bitter moment when treason seeks to prevail. He orders the civilian staff to leave. He shakes each of their hands, sends them away. He stays with a small group of guards. At noon, the jets appear. The bombs fall. La Moneda begins to burn. For nearly 2 hours, Allende exchanges fire with the army he appointed. He knows it's futile. But there is an enormous difference for the history books between a president who died fighting and one who was captured trying to escape. Allende understood that difference better than anyone. Around 1:50 p.m., the palace is overrun. He orders his remaining men to surrender and walks alone to the Independence Salon. He wasn't trying to survive. He was trying to control the meaning of what was about to happen. He sits down, places the barrel of the AK-47 under his chin. And the doctor who believed that change comes through ballots, not bullets, fires. Pinochet ruled for 17 years. Thousands were disappeared. Torture became state policy. The Chilean path was buried, and the Chile Allende had imagined never came to exist. But the coup designed to erase Allende made him eternal instead. In death, he became what 3 years of government had never managed to make him: an unbreakable symbol. His final broadcast was translated into dozens of languages. His face appeared on walls from Paris to Buenos Aires to Mexico City. He ran for president 4 times to prove that democracy and socialism could coexist. The experiment was cut short before it had a result. His enemies used that as evidence that the idea was impossible. But the way he died made a different argument, and a more lasting one. Not the idea worked, but the idea was worth everything. History is ours, he said in his final broadcast, and it is people who make history. The man who believed in ballots died with a rifle in his hands, and somehow that was the most powerful act of his entire life. If this story made you think about leaders who refused to flee when they still could, you need to know another one. He was also brought down. He also lost everything. But unlike Allende, he didn't choose his end. His end was chosen by others. In a 2-hour trial, in a barracks courtyard, on Christmas Day, Nicolae Ceausescu ruled Romania for 24 years with an iron fist. He built a machine of control so efficient that he ended up imprisoned inside it. And he fell not because his enemies were stronger, but because, on a stage in Bucharest, he encountered something his machine had never prepared him to face: reality. Ceausescu, 24 years of power, 4 days to fall. The link is on screen now and in the first pinned comment. Thank you for staying until the end. If these stories resonate with you, share them with someone who'll appreciate them. Subscribe to the channel and leave your comment. See you in the next one.